Xenoblade Genesis was just revealed in this past week's Nintendo Direct, and today I want to break down the trailer. So we get this opening shot, right? We get this beautiful opening shot, and before it even cuts to the next frame here, we can see in the background that something isn't quite right compared to other environments in other video games and just in the Xenoblade series in general. We can see this little town here right at the bottom, all leading to this dock area and this very circular looking platform here. And then towards the left, there's something that almost seems to be some kind of an ice pillar sticking out of the water. In the background, we see this environment is not right. The mountains in the background are tilted, and they're not just tilted. The entire environment behind it, the water, is all tilted. We're on some kind of a sphere, and I don't know exactly how to justify that and make that make sense, because there's a sun in the sky, but there's also a never-ending loop. It appears as though the world curves. And this is where I'd like to present my first theory. That's right, we're one frame in and I already have a theory. This game is going to be different in the sense of, I don't think there's going to be any loading zones between areas. In Xenoblade 1, right, you would have the Bionis, you're traveling through it, and then you would get to the Mechonis, and in each of those areas, there would be different loading zones in between areas. There was a beautiful forest area, and then there was like Gar Plains, and then there's like the Nopon City, the colony. All of these different areas had loading zones in between them. In Xenoblade 2, it was all these different titans. In Xenoblade 3, it was, again, just different areas. I think this could be the first Xenoblade game that there are truly no loading zones between areas, and you can literally just run across the entire world. And at some points, you're gonna get from the bottom to the top, and you're gonna look down, and you're gonna realize that's where you started. But we can maybe dive into that theory a little bit more later on. For now, Anima was the source of all things. Let's not skip over the subtitle here. Throughout the trailer, Anima is referenced, and this is something that it's not very clear what it is yet. Maybe we'll get more information as this goes along, but at least in the opening moments, we're not sure what Anima is. And then boom, here, water. The text down at the bottom is water, and we see, oh my gosh, this is much less of a natural curve like what we saw in the background of the first clip. It seems to be extremely perpendicular. You're just going straight, and then all of a sudden it's completely and totally upward. That is crazy to me, because how are you even supposed to do that? Maybe the water is just all the same color here and the clouds are covering the curvature, but it appears to me to be you walk up and it's like a wall, and then you go up. So maybe my theory was a little bit off. Maybe you can't go and you traverse the upside down, or however you're gonna call this, until later, but there is still potential for that to be true. Okay, now we're talking about all of the elements here, right? We got water, we got fire, and in fire we see the inside of this home here, where this dude is right in front of an oven. Looks like he's making some kind of a pizza or something. And in this nice little cottage area, we see in the background some pots, we see some more fire. This is very much a kitchen-like area where I'm sure many people will come to be able to get some food, to hang out, and just some sort of tavern probably. Then we get wind, right? We're finishing out all of our different elements. We have wind, and it shows the environment. It shows this incredible looking environment. I mean, the background is just gorgeous. This crystal, I don't understand what these crystals are. We saw one earlier, it kind of looked like ice sticking out of the water. Now we see in the background, these look like crystals that are forming some sort of semicircle. We see some enemies here in the environment that are just going through this beautiful grass, and of course, all of the environments in the background, more curves going up, so we're definitely going to be able to traverse from where we are now to that curve area. The text says, every force that gave shape to this world. So we're talking about all the elements, and then how those elements in Anima together were able to give the world shape. And then in the background, once again, we see what appears to look like less of a curve, but it's probably curving up to a wall of water that somehow gravity is not pulling. And this is the town that we saw in the very beginning shot. This is just a little closer in, and we've really not seen a lot of different environments, but here we see another one of where it's from this first shot. People are in the background, there are merchants, there are people trying to sell stuff. Most of these are very underdeveloped, underbaked. I really think that some of these environments are going to look 10 times better the next time we see this game, which will probably be in the February Direct next year. But like, these dudes don't even have faces, and in the final game, I promise you, they will look much better than this. This is very much a placeholder. Even these environments, they kind of had a cell-shaded look to them. I think that won't be the case in the final version of this game. Then we see another look at the town with a ton more people, with some beautiful waterfalls in the background. We have a little bit of a light source here that almost looks like some type type of magic, but it could literally just be a light. I think this is ether. This appears to be ether like we see in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, and then of course it's different in all the games, but in 1 they definitely do use it as light sources, I believe. But yeah, it looks like there are some children here all in their little uniforms. Everyone's just training, they're doing something. It's just a very hustle and bustle kind of town, a lot of NPCs here. The text says every force that gave shape to this world, and then we see in the next scene was a manifestation of the anima that flows through the land. So anima seems to be this very vague thing that is kind of just everywhere and all around you and gives shape and form to everything. Kind of sounds like this world's god. And that is said as we get a little bit of a look at the fire, and it pans up to what I assume is the sky with stars, which makes no sense because if this world continuously curves and all we see is water, how is there a sky? And how does that make sense? We see 5 moons. I believe these are moons because later we'll see that there are a ton of suns in this game. We get a little bit of a scene here of this battle, not a whole lot to break down, but those animals that we saw in the earlier clips are now armored and they're being used to attack. People are fighting with swords. There are all kinds of different old-timey machinery looking things here. Then with all of these very normal soldiers, in the midst of it we see a fighter with a fireball sword. The text says they were decided by Anima, who again I think this is kind of like a godlike thing here, and those who could wield its power, warriors known as Veseli. And the Veseli are very different than the other warriors that we've seen thus far, fighting with just normal swords and probably shields. Here they're wielding some kind of magic, and all around them is this very purple light. She is charging up this massive fireball. She is immersed in that purple light. Her eyeballs even look a little bit purple, and everything about her is just exuding this power. She appears to be one of the Veseli that Anima blessed. Then she chucks that massive fireball at our main character, or at least the character that has gotten the most screen time in this trailer. And then she unsheathes her sword and assumedly cuts a fireball in half, which is pretty awesome. Then in the next clip we see her once again with her pink hair. She says, "I'll uphold this blade's honor, I swear it." So it looks like she's receiving it from someone from this academy that we're about to see. So one of the workers there, or one of the teachers, gave her this blade. She probably was blessed by Anima, has some sort of ability. They somehow knew that. They somehow were able to enroll her by knowing that, and then she gets this blade. Then in the very next scene we get to see more of this monastery looking building where she says this is Lukos, which I assume is the academy name. We get the first look of what is probably the headmaster or the grandmaster of this place. He says that the stone is called an Anima Crystone. The Crystone not only amplifies a Veseli's powers, but also records its bearer's thoughts and actions. Yikes. So they put this stone into the sword, so the power that they were given, and that is in each and every one of these different students here by Anima, is amplified by this Crystone. Then for a brief second, it transforms into what looks like Numa's sword from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I don't understand any of that or how that makes sense, but it looks exactly like it, doesn't it? She lifts up her sword, she kind of looks at it, she's admiring it, probably getting used to it, wondering how it feels. Then we get a great piece of gameplay here of her walking through this monastery, and the text below says every aspect of your life at Lukos, academic and otherwise, will be intertwined with that stone. So us as a player will be obviously getting better and better through the stone. The stone will help amplify our powers. It'll probably be a good way of leveling up. And we see some other students here in the hall. Then she walks through this cafeteria looking area with everybody sitting down. This has a much more finished look to it. I see faces on these NPCs for once. Wow. She walks through another part of this Lukos Academy place. Then we see her out in the wild with 2 other people. One guy who gets a much larger appearance later in this trailer, and then someone else who wields a bow and arrow. Then they run through another environment where we can see in the background just even more of what I would consider unfinished backgrounds. Like, yes, this trailer is very long and they showed us a lot, but it is very clearly not even close to being done yet. These Xenoblade environments will look much, much better. The grass, I will say, already looks phenomenal. Great job, Xenoblade. You do a great job at making grass look amazing. We get a look of them being taught, and then we see what look to be a bunch of our main characters here. Here in the front row is our sword fireball lady who was very angry at our pink-haired protagonist. We see someone in the middle who's very built. He's tall. He's taller than everybody else. He's got a spear on the back of him. Over here on the left side, we see a very protagonist-looking character, or at least one of those side character-looking guys with a silver hair and pointy ears. In the very back, I would also be surprised if this wasn't a side character worth mentioning. We see another almost elf-looking character with a bow and arrow. Here we see a dark-skinned lady with short hair who's probably also going to be a side character. Then we see this orange short hair, someone who's a lot shorter than everybody else as well. And then, of course, the teachers in the front speaking to them. Then they hop on these horse-looking things. They're not horses, but they are very much mystical creatures. This is a fantastical world, something that we've not truly seen in other Xenoblade games. Like, the enemies have always been fantastical and mystical, but we've never had allies that look like this. And then the mountain in the background, and then of course we have the water in the background that shows again the curve of this world. The mountain looks so unfinished, the textures look unfinished. I promise you guys this game will look better in a year. But we're with our two friends again, this other dude we're gonna see later, and then the bow and arrow chick. Here we see what is probably some early footage of this game, some early story stuff, where our bow and arrow friend here with this very bluish purple hair is almost about to get attacked by one of these massive creatures that we've seen throughout the trailer. Then our main character comes in, she illuminates with this light the anima, the Crystone. She uses her sword. She says that she's finally starting to get a handle of her powers, but I kind of doubt that, because not only does she cut off the horn of this massive creature, assumedly killing it, but she also, in the background here, slices this stone in half. And let me rephrase that. It's not just a stone. It's a boulder that she uses. So she's not getting a handle of her powers because she cannot control the direction of her blasts. So there's probably going to be some classic trope going on here where there's something like the two-sword elf-looking girl with the fire powers is upset because she's probably been training her whole life to do what she does, and here comes this newbie who barely discovered that she had powers and is all of a sudden rising the ranks, and everyone wants to talk about her. But she's made some friends pretty quickly. And something else I want to point out from this is that this looks very much like a flute case, which is obviously reminiscent of Xenoblade 3. And then here on the right side, we can see our bow and arrow friend has a very cute little green and pink cloth attached to her bow. Then we get another look at our other friend who is with the protagonist, this cool sword guy who, with one swing of his arm, knocks off this other dude with the sword, and then uses his power with his vesselized stuff, the anima power, the Crystone, whatever you want to call it, whatever he is tapping into. He turns purple like everybody else does. He illuminates with light, and boom, he goes and punches the ground itself. The ground explodes with power. It's kind of like Black Panther, but his text here at the bottom is that killing is a part of a vesselized job, you know, so he's a rough and tough guy who's probably got a soft heart, and he's just doing what he's got to do to survive. I wonder how the victims feel about it, he says with a look that doesn't look very empathetic to me. I don't know, if you ask me, he looks like he's kind of enjoying his life. Our bow and arrow friend once again says, let's find the truth together at the bottom. She has this like levitating green stone in her hands, and the stone flies out in front of her, and then the very next shot that we get is of a dragon, and here at the bottom it says, only the dragon's purifying flame can redeem a soul that has forsaken its fate. So on this dragon here, we have a lot to talk about. First of all, this shot here, so many people have said how very mysterious this boulder in the background here, I don't even know if you can call it a boulder, a very, very, very massive rock structure, how it looks kind of like a spaceship. I've seen some people say that. It looks like a structure that isn't just stone. We know that Xenoblade has an incredible way of making all of their environments very much part of the story, to where it's not just a place. Usually it is also a thing, and people are inside of it and using stuff, and it's always certainly going to be something more than just an environment. Then in the background here we can see one little building, a very unfinished building, a lot of unfinished textures here. So another one of our side characters that we pointed out from the beginning of this little training section where the teacher was talking to all those people, orange hair here is riding on the back of this dragon, and the dragon has green, an emerald green that looks very much like our bow and arrow friend. So maybe those crystals turn into dragons and you can use them. I have no idea, but that seems to be something that seems to make sense to me. Then we have a mom and a daughter looking on to this dragon flying above them, another dragon in the background, some really cool environments. Yet again, this curvature, this water in the world, we see even more environments, some towers, 2 towers here. I wonder if those towers will serve as checkpoints or some sort of map exploration points, something similar to Breath of the Wild perhaps, where you can go and activate the towers and get all kinds of information about the environment around you. Then we go back to our obnoxious dual-wielding threats with a bunch of fire. Wow, how unique, Nintendo and Monolith Soft. Fire meaning bad. But she says, I'll show you where you belong, you backwater noble. So yeah, my theory from earlier is probably correct in that she feels very slighted by our main character's existence. This is a totally different scene in which she's fighting our main character for presumably no reason, and she attacks relentlessly with her fire sword. We get a very cool look at her looking up at the camera. She is at least threatening. Another side character says that she's tougher than you think, doesn't need a Crystone to use her powers. Oh, that's very, very different compared to what we've seen in the past. People probably need those swords to tap into their anima power, but our main character somehow is able to use it without. That's probably why she's at this monastery to begin with, because they found her using powers and were like, hey, let's channel that, let's figure that out. Here's something else. They have a very cool cinematic looking spot here in the hallway where they're both looking at each other. She can't even bother to fully turn towards this dude. She's very upset at the fact that he's trying to tell her what to do and what to think. Then we get more footage of our main character here. here. She is tapping into some crazy power, a ton of light, the most light we've seen thus far illuminating from anyone. She's charging up. At the bottom here, it says we live and die in harmony with Anima. She slices what looks to be an Ouroboros monster from Xenoblade Chronicles 3. We have no idea what this thing is or where they are, but this environment is pretty gross, and the enemy is also extremely gross. We get a look at a new character here who, I don't know if they're evil or if they're brooding, but they're somewhere in between there. The buildings in the background make me think this is someone who teaches at the monastery or was able to find this person very interesting, our main character at least. We get another look at a hologram, and then this very evil looking dude bowing to it. It says, I'm going back to where I belong. Then we get a look at what is probably a relative of our main character. I would give literally any amount of money if this character does not die. I would bet $1 million that this is going to be a dying character. Some motivation for our main character, if you will. Then we get a look at, I don't even know what this is, a cat thing, some sort of furry. We're moving on. Another very cool side character with a mask uses their sphere to kind of hit the ground, and then our main character is looking at her like, what are you doing? We get a look at a massive enemy here with a mask on as well, and he's got a really massive hammer. Then our friend of the protagonist here is holding the protagonist in his arms, illuminating with some crazy light, and he almost looks like he's charging up, or like the power is too much for him. So I kind of wonder if because her powers and her abilities has to do with Anima and not even needing a Cry Stone to using her abilities, maybe it's somehow leaking out and he is trying to help her by absorbing that ability. Somehow he's just trying to be there for her. She looks wounded. She looks like she can barely take it anymore, and maybe he's just there for her. But yeah, I wonder if that's what he's trying to do here, is absorb from some of her power before she makes a mistake that is way too far to come back from. But the way the camera pans in here, it could also be that they're being chased by some sort of enemy or about to be attacked. So he screams. Then we get a look at a very elegant looking woman with short hair. I believe this is the first time that we've seen this woman. And her staff right here with the ether is very much giving her some sort of ability right next to this fire pit. It says, now the time is upon us, and she looks like she's manifesting some stars with this ether. Here's our tall friend from earlier from that orientation looking scene. Then we get the first look at our dual wielding friend here, who actually doesn't look all that upset. In this scene, she finally doesn't look pissed off. We get another look at a side character with red hair here, our main character, and then once again, our main character's friend. Then we go back to our ether girl, who is spinning ether up into the air with her staff. It goes up into the sky with those 5 moons. Then we see, well, brother here at the bottom. So that means that that guy we saw from earlier is our main character's brother. We're looking at a little plant here in the ground as well. She says, wish me luck, as she probably heads off to the academy. And then it says, this is a land warmed by the light of the 6 suns. So those suns in the sky were probably lighting up those 5 moons that we saw. But the suns also move in this trailer as well. So I don't know if that has anything to do with what we just saw, but they're moving around and it makes no sense to me. How is there a sky and also water that never ends? Our 2 characters that are most prominently showcased in this trailer, the main character and the main character's friend here, gallop off towards something. There's really nothing towards the edge of this cliff, but we can see the massive interconnected world once more curving up. The text says, and it is here where mankind would learn that the vengeance of a fallen god had yet to be fulfilled. Who is this fallen god? Well, there are so many choices across the Xenoblade lore. I would honestly wonder if it is Alvis, if that is something from Xenoblade 1, if they're trying to connect these games at all. The Numa Sword is really the only other connection I can think of. But something with Anima here. I think Anima is probably this world's god, so maybe the vengeance of a fallen god has to do with Anima, or maybe Anima is like the Force from Star Wars, it's all around us kind of thing. We see some more environments in this beautiful, beautiful world. It says Xenoblade Genesis, and in the background here we have some lava with very interesting shapes. This looks like the Monado up here. But once this logo gets its full animation, we see this purple light, which is illuminated from so many of our players, so many of our different characters. Anima, the Cry Stones, all these different abilities. It's being signified here with this light. Then of course it's coming in 2027. So that was about 29 almost here minutes of just me going through this entire trailer and breaking it down. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that you saw that I didn't? I think I would theorize so far, if I had to put everything together from what I've learned, there's Anima, right? And Anima is all around us. They start off by talking about fire, water, wind. It's just everything. It is the culmination of all, and it's why the world exists. Then there are these characters with different abilities, right? And you're able to tap into those abilities with the Cry Stones. The Cry Stones go into your different weapons, swords, shields, hammers, whatever you're going to have. Those will be able to kind of draw your power out and illuminate it more physically. But our main character is different. Our character doesn't even need a Cry Stone to use her abilities. The one girl with elf ears is very upset at this fact. We've got 2 people that are constantly on our side. We've got dragons flying through the air. We've got a very fantasy looking world. We've got a beautiful monastery and really cool school dynamics. They showed off different enemies, some weird looking creatures. This world is going to be as full and vibrant as any Xenoblade game has ever been. And although I'm very confused about the sky, I do kind of wonder if this will be a very interconnected world. I think that possibility is real. The way it all curves together makes me think that it's just one big area. And of course, we could look back at the Bionis and the Mechonis and say, well, look, it's one big area, right? You should just be able to run up and down it. But I feel like this is different, right? We have the Switch 2. Monolith Soft is known for getting the most out of hardware, for making very powerful games. So the way this game looks, I feel like there's got to be a reason for it. The reason it doesn't look as great as it is right now is probably because they've been working so hard to make sure everything stays interconnected to where there's not even any loading zones. And then of course, there's always still a chance. I really do think it's going to look much, much better the next time we get a big trailer. They just need more time to polish it, but hey, it could definitely be a design choice to make this a very cel-shaded looking world with the environment looking the way they do. The character designs are very anime-y. I feel like more anime-y than any other game in the series. But to know more, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you like, subscribe to join the channel, consider joining my membership program, a few bucks a month to support me financially and get some cool perks for yourself, and click that notification bell so you never miss one of my uploads. Well, if you loved that Nintendo Direct, click on the left side of your screen to see my full thoughts on it, my initial reactions right after, and click on the right side of your screen to see why I thought the Ocarina of Time thing was just a huge mess. I hope you have yourself a phenomenal Xenoblade loving day. This has been Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I'll see you all in the next video.